Hi, this is Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, right back here on WagerTalk TV with your college football top 25 video for week 3 this Saturday, September the 16th. I'm going to break down the biggest top 25 matchups in college football this week. I'm going to let you know where my power ratings, my game simulation projections are, and let you know the situational aspects as well, which will point to some point spread winners for you here in week 3 on Saturday. There are no true top 25 matchups. This is probably the weakest card of the season. We have a lot of big time games starting next week in week 4. We've only had 3 head-to-head top 25 true matchups all season so far in college football, and there are none this week. So what I did was went down the card and took what I think are probably the 5 biggest games this week in college football. We have some early kickoffs, some mid-afternoon, and even some late nighttime action. And don't you worry, we're going to finish off with that Colorado game. I know many of you last week said, hey, why wasn't Colorado on the video? They cracked the top 25. Well, I'm throwing them in this week for all you Dion fans out there. Prime time. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. But a quick reminder, if you're finding this useful, give me a thumbs up, a like, and leave me comments below. I love the comments. I read every one of them, and I reply back. Let me know your thoughts where you think there's some point spread value this week in college football in the comments below. All right, let's start off with a couple of early games at 12 noon Eastern on Saturday. SEC action, number 14, LSU at Mississippi State. And this game kicks off at noon Eastern on ESPN National TV. And we don't have to wait long for what could be an upset, in my opinion. One of the reasons I included this game is because Mississippi State is unranked. But if they pull the upset this week, they've got a good chance of sneaking into the rankings. And I think they have a very good shot of pulling that upset. In fact, I talked about this game earlier this week on College Football Today's show here on WagerTalk TV. And by the way, go back and check all the great episodes this week of the College Football Show right here on the channel. Some great breakdowns from numerous campers, including free plays. And I like Mississippi State in this game on Saturday for several reasons. First of all, I think they're a live dog in this game. My power ratings, by the way, favor LSU by just 3 points. And currently LSU is a 9.5-point favorite as we screen. So definitely a live dog that could win this game outright. I make the line 3.3. Current line is 9.5. And this is a Mississippi State team that I think kind of is going through the motions last week against Arizona. They won but failed to cover as a 9-point favorite. I think they've kept things close to the vest here, but this is their 3rd straight home game in 3 weeks here. It's a good setup for them. And they're catching an LSU team playing, yes, their first true road game, but it's really their 2nd road game in 3 weeks. Of course, they had that tough loss against Florida State on Sunday. And by the way, that is one of the only 3 true top 25 matchups that I was talking about this season when LSU played Florida State on Sunday night, Labor Day weekend. And that was a bad loss for LSU. Last week, they exposed a terrible Grambling team, 72-10. But let's not read too much into that. LSU was a 56.5-point favorite in that game. So this is what we call a huge step up in class now for the Tigers. And I think LSU will be exposed this week. I like Mississippi State to possibly win this game outright. And I definitely think there's some value with them catching the 9.5 points. This is a revenge spot also for Mississippi State. They lost 31-16 last year, also in week 3. And keep in mind, they were a 3-point road favorite in that game. And now they're a 9.5-point dog. That's a 2-touchdown swing when you factor in the home fields. I think it's an overreaction, and my database simulation math model says it's an overreaction as well. So a live dog, in my opinion, at noon Eastern on ESPN with the Mississippi State Bulldogs. All right, let's look at another early game for you on the noon Eastern card. This one is on the SEC network as we stay in the SEC with Missouri hosting Kansas State. And Kansas State is the ranked team here, number 15, Kansas State at unranked Missouri. Now, if Missouri pulls this upset, I think they maybe could sneak into the top 25 as well. So another reason I wanted to talk about this game. But it's also another live home dog, in my opinion. I run several different database and simulations. In fact, a lot of my simulation and yardage projections has Missouri outgaining Kansas State in this game, despite the fact they're getting more than a field goal. However, my database rescore model, my 10,000 game simulation, had Kansas State winning by an average of 7 points. So the models are somewhat conflicting here. So let's look a little bit more at the situational handicap. And I do like Missouri when all things are equal here. This line opened 6. The sharp money has pushed it down to 4. I would agree with that move. I think Missouri is a live dog here. And once again, even though my database rescore model has Kansas State on average winning by 7, several of the simulations and projections I run did have Missouri winning this game outright and outgaining Kansas State. So I think the spread, the drop from 6 to 4, the sharp money was correct in this one. And I like the Missouri Tigers as another live home dog in this one. And this is also another revenge situation. Just it's very similar to the Mississippi State game where we have an unranked live home dog playing with revenge from last season. And keep in mind, they were blown out last year 40-12 against Kansas State early in the year as well. But that was a misleading loss. They were outplayed. Offense did not move the ball well with only 200 and some total yards. In fact, in the game, they only had a total of 222 offensive yards. So the 12 points is probably about right. But what was misleading was giving up the 40 points to Kansas State on the road, as they only allowed 336 yards. The problem was 4 turnovers to 1, and that's what did Missouri in. Missouri, an extremely experienced team. In fact, returning production numbers, depending on which rankings you look at, some of the nation have them as the second most experienced veteran team returning this year, production-wise, out of over 130 1A teams. So this is a veteran team. The revenge motive carries extra weight for that reason, and they're also a live dog. And once again, even though my math model has Kansas State by 7, I think that one's a little high. I like Missouri in this game, and I have several methods, projections that have them winning outright on Saturday afternoon, noon Eastern on the SEC network. All right, we're going to get to 3 later games. We're going to get to a mid-afternoon game with number 1 ranked Georgia and also 2 nighttime games. Quick reminder, though, if you want my personal best bets, the games that I feel are the strongest this Saturday in college football, get them right now on my page at WagerTalk.com, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, and you can get a huge discount right now when you use a special promo code. Get 30 days of college football for just $99 with promo code STEVE99. That's STEVE99 gets you the next 30 days and nights of my college football best bets, including all my powerful plays this Saturday for just $99. 30 days for $99 of football with promo code STEVE99 on my page right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut code WT.buzz/SM. All right, another top 25 team playing is Georgia, the number 1 ranked team in the country. Now, South Carolina is not ranked. If they pull the upset here, which I don't think they will, by the way, they will be ranked. So it's another one that kind of fits the theme of an unranked team that could get into the rankings with a good showing, but I don't think that happens this week. When these teams kick off at 3:30 Eastern, I think Georgia most likely rolls. By the way, this game is on CBS National TV at 3:30 Eastern. South Carolina at number 1 ranked Georgia. First, let's look at my database projections. 10,000 game simulations. I have Georgia winning by 29 points on average. Current line is around minus 27. So as long as it remains below 4 touchdowns, which it currently has, the value is with the Georgia Bulldogs, and that would be the only way I'd play this. I don't like to buy and hope, whether it's the financial markets or the sports betting markets. I don't like to play big dogs that I don't think can win the game, and I don't see South Carolina having a chance here. Now, the concern I have with this game, and there's always concerns, is that South Carolina does have what we call backdoor cover potential. And the reason I say that is their passing offense has been fantastic so far this season. You know, Spencer Rattler and company. Spencer came over from Oklahoma a couple years ago. I still thought last year, and even maybe this year, he was a dark horse Heisman contender if things fall right. And he's off to a great start. But now there's a huge step up in class, obviously, against the best defense in the country. Georgia Bulldogs have allowed just 10 total points in their first 2 games this year. The question becomes, do they take their foot off the gas late in the game? And if so, can South Carolina maybe get that backdoor cover? What you look for with backdoor cover potential is a good offense. South Carolina is a decent offense, 32 points a game. But I especially look for teams that can throw the ball. And South Carolina definitely throws the ball well. 80% completions, 10.5 yards per pass attempt this season. 70 pass attempts after 2 games, and they're averaging over 10.5 yards per pass attempt. That obviously gives them some late game potential to sneak within the 4 touchdowns, and that is a concern. But the Georgia secondary has just been incredible the first 2 games. Not only are they allowing just 5 points a game on defense, but they're allowing just 3.9 yards per pass. Now, granted, they've played absolutely nobody so far. Tennessee Martin, they were a 50-point favorite, only scored even 48. And then last week, they pushed against Ball State 45-3 as a 42-point favorite, landing right on the number. Both games have actually stayed under the total, by the way, just because the Georgia offense hasn't exactly blown those teams out. But then again, I'm not going to penalize Georgia for scoring 93 points in their first 2 games. This is a game they probably have had circled all offseason. They only have UAB on deck. So even though South Carolina does have some backdoor cover potential, it might not matter if Georgia comes fully focused, which I think they will. Once again, my database, 10,000 game simulation database, projects a 29-point win. I'm going to stick with that model. So at the current line of minus 27, there is some value with the Georgia Bulldogs, despite laying the big number. That's at 3:30 Eastern on CBS. All right, 2 night games for Saturday. And don't forget, once again, get my best bets right now for Saturday college football, the next 30 days of football for just $99. You can choose college or pro or use it for both, but you must have promo code STEVE99, STEVE99 for 30 days of college and or pro football for just $99. Go to my page right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. All right, we're sticking in the SEC. You can see the theme here. A lot of SEC teams with these top 25 matchups, and when they start to play conference games the next couple of weeks, obviously that's why we will have a lot of true head-to-head top 25 matchups. And once again, there were no true top 25 head-to-head matchups this week, so I'm picking 5 games with highly ranked teams of interest, and this one definitely fits the mold. In fact, very similar to our other 2 games with home dogs against ranked teams. If Florida pulls the upset, I think they very well could be ranked next week, and that's number 11 Tennessee heading to unranked Florida at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Saturday night. And just like the other 2 live home dogs, unranked home dogs, rather, I think this is another live home dog with the Florida Gators, and that is the way I would play this game on Saturday evening. I think Florida definitely has a chance at the outright upset. In fact, several of the simulations and the projections that I run with my database model have Florida winning this game outright, and I don't disagree. I think they're a live dog here, to say the least. Looking at my database simulations, my projections on this game has a very tight game overall, and I think that is probably how it plays out. Keep in mind, these teams played last year, and just like the other 2, it's eerie how similar the Missouri, Mississippi State, and Florida games are. That's why I wanted to talk about all 3 of them here in the video. But just like last season when these teams met, it really did go down to the wire. And these are situations here where Florida has a legitimate revenge motive for that 38-33 loss. And keep in mind, that was a tough scheduling spot for Florida last year, as they had to take to the road for the first time after 3 straight home games, and neither team played any defense. It was one of the most entertaining games of the season. If you recall back, and by the way, it wasn't the 3rd week of the season. It was the 4th game, I believe, for these teams. The first 3 were at home for Florida, as I mentioned, and then they went to Tennessee on September 24th last year. They lost a close one, 38-33. They did cover as an 11.5-point road dog. Total soared over 62.5. Even though there were only 71 points, there should have been more points scored, as the 2 teams combined for over 1,100 yards of total offense. In fact, Florida had the yardage advantage in that game overall. They had 594 yards to 576. You told me the Gators are going to have 594 yards in a game and lose. Wouldn't have thought that would happen, but that's what happened last year. So it is a legitimate revenge spot here for Florida as the home dog. Very inexperienced team, though. They rank only 118th this year in returning production metrics based on which ratings you look at. That is a little bit of a concern here now that they're stepping up in class, but they've already had one tough opponent this year, and that, of course, was back in week 1 when they had to travel to Utah, and they lost that weeknight game. Now, keep in mind, that was a difficult scheduling spot and also a difficult travel spot. The tropical storm was hitting Florida that week, so the Gators left town early, and they could not get hotel rooms that Tuesday in Utah, so they had to go through Texas first, spend the night there, and then fly into Utah. And then on top of that, play in the thin air and altitude first game of the season, which is always tough because you haven't played a real game yet in college football. You've had scrimmages and practices. So I give them a little bit of a pass for that lackluster showing in week 1. They did bounce back a week later against McNeese last week with a solid 49-7 win. Now they were only a 49-point favorite, so they barely even scored the point spread. But once again, I think they're holding back a little bit for this game against Tennessee. Volunteers, meanwhile, have not looked explosive on offense this year. They played a very mediocre Virginia team in game 1. They won and covered. But then last week against Austin Peay, 49-point favorite, they only won 30-13. Always a huge red flag when a team scores nearly 3 touchdowns less than the point spread itself. And I think that's a sign that this Tennessee offense is not nearly as strong as it was last season. And they will be facing what I consider a pretty good Florida defense. Let's look once again at my simulation and projections, and a lot of them have Florida outgaining Tennessee and winning the game outright. And my database 10,000 game simulation has Tennessee coming out ahead by just 4 points on average. So there is also point spread value here at the current line of plus 6.5. Now, there was a little bit of early sharp money on Florida. It opened 7, came down to 6.5, but I don't think it's been enough. And there is still line value and a good situational matchup. So I do like the Florida Gators, another live home dog. That's been the theme of this video. That game kicks off at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. Now, those are the 4 biggest matchups with top 25 teams, in which all 4 teams, if they pull the upset, the opponents, the unranked teams, I think could be ranked next week. going to give you a fifth bonus game. That's not the case here because Colorado State's not going to get ranked if they beat Colorado. But I know many of you last week asked about the Colorado Buffaloes, and I wanted to include them in the matchup here since we don't technically have any true head-to-head top 25 matchups. Let's talk about prime time, Dion and company, and that's also the late game. So it's a huge game of interest at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. And by the way, other games we didn't get to, leave some comments below. Let me know your thoughts on those games as well. Other games where you see value here in week 3 for college football. Let's win together and let's make some money. Let's put our minds together. I read all the comments. I reply back. I love the support. So once again, let me know your thoughts on other games as well. But this is a huge game of interest at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Saturday night. And that is number 18, Colorado, the Buffs, at home against rival Colorado State. Line open 22.5. It's up to 23. So we've seen very little movement on this. The total open 59 up to 61. And look, I'm not going to talk anybody off of Colorado over anytime soon. And I know last week's game stayed under against Nebraska, a very mediocre offensive team in Nebraska. But Colorado still struggled at times defensively. In fact, Nebraska had 222 rushing yards in that game, but only 14 points. For the second week in a row, the Cornhuskers had a 4-1 turnover deficit. And Colorado has been very fortunate with turnovers so far. 6 turnovers forced, only 2-4. And that's one of the reasons their offense has been unstoppable. 81 points, and they've thrown for over 900 yards in the first 2 games. So they should get plenty of points and plenty of productions against a Colorado State team that was really bad last year. You know, Colorado State was 3-9. Colorado U was 1-11. Obviously, the Buffaloes' offense is much better this year, but keep in mind this Colorado defense gave up 45 points a game last year. I'm not sure they're all that much improved. I think Dion brought in some talent, but more so on the offensive side of the ball. So Colorado State does have maybe some backdoor cover potential here. And it's a really unique scheduling situation as they played back in week 1 and they lost to Washington State 50-24 as only an 8.5-point home dog. So once again, that defense looked awful in that game. But then they had their bye week last week. I mean, nobody wants their bye in week 2. But in this situation, maybe it was a good thing for Colorado State because they've had an extra week to prepare. And they also have 2 weeks of game film now. You know, when TCU played Colorado in week 1, nobody knew what to expect. They had no film on Colorado's new offense. Nebraska had a little bit of film last week, but now Colorado State has a couple weeks of film, including an extra week last week off to study that TCU game. So I do think there's a little bit of a game plan edge here for Colorado State. Norvell, head coach, came out this week and made some comments, which is going to probably motivate Colorado. I don't like that. It's also another home game for the Buffaloes. They sold out last week. They're going to be hyped. And Colorado, after going 1-11 last year, is the type of team you don't want to look to fade as a favorite because they're not going to take their foot off the gas and run up the score. With that said, though, they do have a huge look ahead next week at Oregon. It's going to be one of the best games of the season early on. So normally this would not be a great spot, but the fact it's a rival dog, an in-state recruiting rival, and the fact that Colorado's at home, it's hard to go against them here. The line is a little hefty, though. My database simulation on 10,000 games rerun through the database has Colorado Buffaloes winning by 21 on average. So once again, an average victory by 21. Current line is 23. So it's a little bit high, but once again, 22 and 23 are what we call dead numbers. So the line's pretty much spot on. I'm in no hurry to fade Colorado in this game, but if I am going to play it, the over 61 would be my recommendation. Once again, the Buffaloes' defenses look very suspect at times. By the way, they've given up over 6 yards per carry this season. The 2 games against TCU and Nebraska, despite going 2-0 straight up, they've given up over 480 rushing yards and over 6 yards per carry. That's a concern here. And another reason I think Colorado State can get some points as well. We know Colorado can score. I think the Rams can get some points here. So I do like over 61 if you're looking to play this late night game between Colorado State and Colorado. That's at 10 Eastern on ESPN Saturday night. All right, hey, no true top 25 matchups this week. It's probably the only week of the year that'll happen, but we still had some great games to talk about. Hope you found this video useful. If you did, do me a few favors. Leave me a thumbs up, a like, and most importantly, leave me some comments below. I read all the comments. I reply back. Let me know your thoughts not only on these games where you agree or disagree, but also the other games this Saturday in college football that have some value. And don't forget, hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts when this video goes live every week here on WagerTalk TV. And also, you'll be the first to know when my NFL Fade the Public Week 2 video goes live this weekend. I tell you the most public sides in the NFL each week, and fading them long-term has made you money on the blind. So don't forget to check out that NFL Fade the Public video as well. Hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts. And if you want my official best bets for this Saturday in college football, get them right now on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. and save big with a 30-day special. 30 days of college or pro football, your choice, or use it for both. Just $99 with promo code STEVE99. STEVE99. STEVE99 gets you 30 days and nights of college and or pro football for just $99. Go to my page right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut code WT.buzz/SM. You can also follow me on Twitter at Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L, Merril, at Steve Merril on Twitter. And I'll be back once again this weekend with NFL Fade the Public right here on WagerTalk TV. Enjoy the games and best of luck on Saturday.